Plastic contamination in the marine environment was first reported nearly 50 years ago, that is less than 2 decades after the rise of commercial plastic production, when less than 50 million metric tons were produced per year. However, now the global plastic production has surpassed 300 million metric tons per year. Plastic debris has been detected worldwide in all major marine habitats in sizes from microns to meters. In response, concerns about risk to marine wildlife upon exposure to the varied forms of plastic debris have increased, stimulating new research into the extent and consequences of plastic contamination in the marine environment. Here, I would like to present a framework to evaluate the current understanding of the sources, distribution, fate, and impacts of marine plastics. Despite the remaining knowledge gaps in mass budgeting and challenges in investigating ecological impacts, the increasing evidence of the ubiquity of plastic contamination in the marine environment, the continued rapid growth in plastic production, demonstrated impacts to marine wildlife support, immediate implementation of source reducing measures to decrease the potential risk of plastics in the marine ecosystem. An overview of plastics used in the marine environment. The first report of plastic litter in the ocean was in 1970s, and most of the plastics that comes to the ocean is from packaging waste, and 70 to 80 million tons of packaging plastics are used globally, and each year they end up in the oceans. And the several broad classes of plastics that are used in packaging are polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, polyethylene terephthalate, and polyvinyl chloride. The land-based sources, including beach litter, contributes to almost 80% of the plastic debris. And the side effects are entanglement of marine mammals in the net fragment litter called as ghost fishing. And the plastics that end up in the marine environment are classified into different sizes, and those which are size more than 50 centimeter are classified as megaplastics, and the plastic which range from size 5 to 50 centimeter are macroplastics, 0.5 to 5 centimeter are mesoplastics, and 0.05 to 0.5 centimeter are microplastics, and now those which are less than 0.03 centimeter are classified as nanoplastics. And coming to the source and the sinks of the plastics in the marine environment, first we'll discuss on the source of plastics in the marine environment. And this figure shows the overall source as well as sinks of plastics in the marine environment. See that the left hand side of the diagram shows the annual flows of plastics into the marine environment. There are two sources from the land. There is the land-based coastal sources and the land-based inland sources. And it is possible that there is some overlap between the land-based coastal sources and land-based inland sources. Inland sources are those which is taken to be plastics that flow into the sea through the rivers. As some of these mismanaged or littered plastic items within 50 km of the coastlines may reach the sea through the rivers, which is a common means of transmission for inland plastic litter. On the right hand side we can see that it shows the stock of marine plastic to which each year's annual flow keeps providing additional plastic. And the figures on the right shows the concentration of the plastics in the different compartments, marine compartments, that is the beach, the floating in the water, and in the ocean floor. And the land-based coastal, it's estimated that an average of 9 million tons of plastics per annum from the mismanaged waste within the 50 km of coastlines come into the oceans. And land-based inland shows that an average of 0.5 million tons per annum based on the plastic which is coming from the rivers that reaches the ocean. And the land-based sources include mainly recreational use of the coast, general public litter, industry, harbors, and unprotected landfills as well as dumps that are located near the coast, and also sewage overflows, introduction by accidental loss, and extreme events like floods and storms. Marine litter can be transported to the sea by the rivers and other industrial discharges and runoffs, and even can be blown into the marine environment by winds. And it's estimated that more than 80% of the annual input of plastics into the ocean comes from land-based sources, and the largest contributor is the plastic litter, including everyday items like drinking water bottles and other type of plastic packaging items. And in the sea also there are several sources, and it is estimated that an average of 1.7 million tons per annum comes from the sea source itself. Ocean-based sources of marine litter include commercial shipping, ferries and liners, both commercial and recreational fishing vessels, military and research fleets, pleasure boats, and offshore installations such as platforms, rigs, and aquaculture sites. Factors like ocean currents and climates and tides and proximity to urban industrial recreational sites, shipping lanes, and fishing grounds influence the type of litter and the amount of litter that comes into the ocean. So 94% of the plastic that comes into the ocean goes to the sea floor, and only 1% floats on the surface, and the remaining portion of plastics that remains in the water column. So you can see the percentage of marine litter that remains on the surface as a floating biomass, and 5% almost remains in the beaches of that is adjacent to the sea, and sea floor, most of the plastics goes to the sea floor, that is almost 94%, and it may change sometimes from place to place. The concentration of the plastic in different marine compartments like beaches, ocean floor, and floating at the surface of the ocean, which consists of plastic bottles, bags, caps, lids, and also cans, and many other plastic items that originate from the inland source as well as the marine source. And these form larger patches of garbage patches in the oceans. It has been well reported that these garbage patches exist in the ocean gyres. Ocean gyres are whirlpools of water that trap huge collection of trash in their currents, and the presence of this garbage patches has been reported in 5 places in the oceans, and the first reported and the most famous one is the North Pacific gyre, and we also have the South Pacific gyre, then the North Atlantic gyre, the South Atlantic gyre, Indian Ocean, and the Indian Ocean gyres. So these are patches of plastics that are present on the surface of the ocean, and these patches are very large, and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is estimated to be about 3.2 million tons of trash on the surface of the ocean. And see the fate of these plastics that are discarded in the marine environment. The plastics undergo various changes due to various factors like physical factors, chemical factors, and also biological factors. The physical factors, by the action of sunlight, by the action of UV, ultraviolet radiation, the macroplastics or the large size plastics are degraded to form smaller size plastics, and after degradation they harbor a lot of organic substances, and also they harbor microorganisms which is called biofouling, and due to biofouling they increase in the density and they come to the bottom, they sink and sediment to the bottom. And in the chemical factors, these floating microplastics and the macroplastics, they encounter several type of organic pollutants, primarily the persistent organic pollutants, or they are also called as the POPs, and these plastics absorb and concentrate the chemicals that are dissolved in the seawater, and the chemical additives leach from the plastics and they remain in the water column, and the interaction of these chemicals also cause a change in the plastic quality and quantity. And next is the biological factors. In biological factors, primarily it is by the consumption of organisms and transport of the plastic materials through the food chain from the lower trophic level to the higher trophic level. So ingestion of plastics in addition to the additives that are present in the plastics by the marine organisms, and they bioaccumulate in the marine organisms, and they are also transferred through the food chain, which causes bioconcentration or biomagnification into the larger trophic or the higher trophic levels. So these are the 3 different factors that influence the fate of plastics that are present in the marine environment. And degradation of plastics also occurs in the marine environment by the action of microorganisms, which is called biodegradation, by the action of sunlight is called photodegradation, and also thermo-oxidative degradation, that is the slow oxidative breakdown of at moderate temperatures. Then thermal degradation, which is the degradation that occurs at higher temperatures, and the hydrolysis, that the plastic reacts with the water. And the degradation of larger plastics leads to the increase in quantity of another group of plastics known as the microplastics. These microplastics are now classified as an emerging pollutant, and it is a very big threat to the marine organisms. So under the influence of UV radiation, wind and currents and other natural factors, the plastic fragments into small particles called microplastics. That is, they are smaller than 5 millimeter, and they are of two types. They are the primary and secondary microplastics. The primary microplastics are those which are produced as microplastics themselves, for example the microbeads that are present in the cosmetics, and the secondary microplastics are those which are produced from the megaplastics or the larger plastics, the breakdown of larger plastic particles into smaller particles produce the secondary microplastics. And the categories and sources of these microplastics in the environment are, the different types are shown in this figure. Microbeads, they are those microplastics that are used in personal care products like cleaners and also cosmetics. And nodules are the pre-production plastic pellets that are used for further manufacture. And fibers are the most common type of microplastic which are generated from cloths. Then foams are from food containers and cups. Then fragments, they are small plastics that are derived from the larger plastic products. We see the sources and transport and fate of this microplastics in the environment. This figure shows a very detailed picture of the sources, where they come from and how they are accumulated and how they are transported, how they are transported through the food chain also. The direct introduction with runoff, then weathering or breakdown of the meso and microplastic debris forms this microplastics. And some microplastics, especially the manufactured micro as well as nano particles of the plastics, are used in consumer products. They are directly introduced in the ocean via runoff. And these include the micron size plastic particles, typically used as exfoliants in the cosmetic industries, and those generated in ship breaking industry and industrial abrasives in synthetic sandblasting media. It is the beads of acrylic plastics and polyester. So these can easily reach the oceans through runoff. And we see the hypothetical evolution of this physicochemical and biological modification of microplastics and nanoplastics that are released into the aquatic environment. In the absence of sedimentation, the submicron particles move freely due to Brownian motion in water, and finally they form clogs, or they coagulate, or they flocculate and form aggregate over a period of time. This behavior depends on the plastic surface charges and also on the nature of the ions that are present in the water. In the absence of surface charges, these hydrophobic particles, they are not thermodynamically stable and they aggregate very easily, forming agglomerates. So these particles interact with the molecules present in the seawater and they gain surface charges, and very interestingly, this interaction differs according to the plastic characteristics such as the composition and size. And besides contaminants, microorganisms and rafting microorganisms also can rapidly develop on the surface of the plastic debris. They form a layer called the ecocorona layer. Within first few hours of the plastics, the release of this microplastic to the environment, they form a surface layer. The surface is modified by the attachment of organic matter as well as microorganism on the surface, and then they form a microcorona layer on the surface, and deposition of this particles into the water after during or after use leads to the absorption of forming this ecocorona, and whereby a layer of biomolecules coats this bioplastics, changing into its stability, identity, and also its toxicity. And the harmful effects of plastics primarily includes the entanglement of plastics on marine organisms, ingestion of this plastics by the marine organisms, the presence of toxic contaminants on the surface of the plastics. When ingested by the marine organisms, it causes toxicity, and also the presence of pathogenic organisms that are transported through this plastics and causes lot of health effects on the marine organisms. So, say you can see this entanglement, how the plastics are entangled around the marine organisms and cause harmful effects including death. So, entanglement of marine life occurs all over the world. For example, organisms like whales, octopus, seals and crabs and many other organisms have been reported to be entangled with the marine plastics. Hundreds of thousands of marine birds and mammals are known to die or perish in the active fishing gear, and the term ghost fishing has been established for the lost fishing gear or the abandoned fishing gear, and the ghost nets may continue to trap and kill the organisms and also damage the benthic habitats. Seabirds are also well known to be entangled around the bill, wings and feet with rope-like materials, and this constrains their ability to fly or forage properly. In shark-like animals, plastic entanglement reduces the mouth opening so that it impairs the aging and also gill ventilation. Crabs, octopus, fishes and a wide range of smaller marine biota are known to get caught in the traps on the sea floor and die due to stress, injuries or starvation, because escaping is very difficult. And next is ingestion. Mostly ingestion is meso or smaller plastics or microplastics, and the ingestion of plastic by marine organisms is less visible compared to entanglement. And ingestion of plastic debris has been documented for most of the marine turtles and whales, seals and also seabirds. The first one was reported as in albatross. The ingestion of a number of plastic pieces were found in his intestine. And one of the factors often considered to influence the consumption of marine debris is the color, because specific colors may attract predators when resembling the color of the prey. Light colored and translucent plastics are most commonly ingested, suggesting similarity to the jellyfish. And the flexibility of plastic bags and the found that blue colored items were less frequently eaten, probably because of lower detection in the open water, and other colored items are very easily taken apart by the fishes. An additional factor is the shape of the floating plastic bags. It resembles the jellyfish. You can see the jellyfish and plastic bags are almost similar, and it is fed upon by most of the marine organisms, particularly the turtles. Turtles are endangered because of consuming this plastic bags, mistaking them for jellyfish. Then secondary ingestion also take place, like filter feeding marine organisms ranging in small size that are found in the benthic environment, to crustaceans, to fishes, seabirds and also larger baleen whales that are prone to plastic ingestion. And these species obtain the nutrition by filtering large volumes of water which may contain this marine debris in addition to the targeted food source. And although the non-food items can be ejected before passage into the digestive system, this is not always the case, and in the natural habitat the ingested plastics have been found in the intestine of these organisms. So unintentionally the plastic is ingested as a part of secondary ingestion, which occurs when the animals feed on the prey that has already ingested the debris, and this occurs because of the predator consumes the prey and it is a part of the food chain. The toxicity of the ingested plastic shows that the plastics causes lot of toxic effects, starting from small organisms to larger organisms like the whales. And the toxicity differs by the size and type of the plastics that is ingested by the organisms. And particularly the toxicity comes from the chemicals that are adhered to the plastics. So in the plastics there are a cocktail of chemicals, and in the marine environment plastics acts as vehicles for these chemicals, including those intentionally added during the manufacturing of the plastics, as well as the environmental contaminants that are present in the environment, in the marine environment, that are absorbed to the surface during the use and also prevalence in the environment. A wide range of chemical products are used in plastic manufacturing that are recognized as very toxic to animals and humans. For example, like carcinogens, endocrine disruptors and neurotoxic chemicals. And the substances or the chemicals include styrene, toxic metals, heavy metals, phthalates, bisphenol A, polychlorinated biphenyls, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, etc. And in addition to that, they also contain pathogenic microorganisms that are present in the plastisphere. So it has been suggested that plastic debris may increase the global risk of human and animal diseases by new contamination or infection routes through the introduction of plastics and their vectors through spread of microplastics or the migrant organisms that comes into contact to the plastics. So in addition to the chemicals, microbes and other organisms have been found on the plastic debris. They are described as the plastisphere and are of particular concern regarding the spread of exotic invasive species and pathogens like pathogenic organisms like Vibrio, E. coli, Bacillus species, Aeromonas species, etc. that causes the disease. And the size of the plastics also determine their entry into the mammalian bodies. The size when the size are very small, the access becomes very high. Smaller particles have access to all organs. They are translocated through the blood-brain barrier and also placental barrier. The number of published scientific papers relating to the assessment of microplastic effects on aquatic organisms through a variety of lab experiments have been increasing over a period of time, and you can see that in this graph shows a burgeoning increase in the number of research papers which studies the impact of plastics on the marine organisms. And also you can see in this figure the different impacts or the effects, health effects of these contaminants that are present on the surface of the plastics that cause on marine organisms. So in the x-axis you can see the different contaminants like heavy metals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, then polychlorinated biphenyls and all other heavy metals like nickel, chromium, etc. that are present in the different types of plastics like polyethylene, polystyrene or polyvinyl chloride, etc. And this shows the different types of effects like mortality, behavioral effect, biotransformation of enzymes, blood and hemolymph effects, physical effects, neurotoxicity, cytotoxicity, etc. And this is called the Trojan horse effect because this plastic acts as a carriers for carrying this chemicals or these toxicants on their surface. And the future challenges of this plastic pollution shows that it is very important to adopt food safety risk analysis frameworks to evaluate the hazards and risks to consumers of fish, shellfish and food items that are contaminated with the microplastics. And there is a great need to study the assimilation of a range of microplastics sizes and composition into human tissues, and also in the development of techniques which are capable of identifying the presence of microplastics in the human body. And another area that deserves urgent attention is the presence of nano-sized plastics in the seafood, which there is less data in the literature. And research on analytical methods involve toxicokinetics and toxicity of micro and nano-sized plastics is needed to improve the understanding of their potential impact on seafood safety and also human health. So this calls for a multidisciplinary approach That is the main challenges in microplastic ecotoxicology. It requires a multidisciplinary approach including physics, chemistry and biology, and the future challenges will be to characterize the entry mechanisms of these microplastics or nanoplastics, which are now called as the emerging pollutants at the cellular and molecular levels, and the larger size of particles that are able to translocate, and possible effects of the different form, shape, the formation of corona and biofouling. And more specifically, 3 set of actions are required: designing protocols, specifying dedicated to translocation studies and preventing the contamination, studying the detailed mechanisms of microplastics and nanoplastics entry through the different epithelia using suitable or innovative approaches, and also quantifying this phenomena. Afterwards, to estimate the specific physiological consequences of translocation, it is also very important to assess whether the translocation is limited to a particular system or they interact with other system through passing through biological membranes, whether penetration is possible or whether they induce the stress responses like production of reactive oxygen species, etc. So, the solutions for this shows that we have to find solutions, and these findings, all these findings have implication for the focus of efforts to tackle the problem of plastics, and prevention is preferable to cure as always, and the greatest opportunity to prevent the plastic entering the ocean is to take steps to reduce plastic littering on land. As already discussed, 80% of the marine plastics comes from the land based sources. So, preventive measures to reduce the plastic pollution on land will naturally prevent the plastic prevalence in the marine environment. And there are several steps taken by the government, several rules and acts passed for preventing the use of single-use plastics like carry bags have already proven effective step in the right direction. The same approach can be taken to prevent the littering of plastic items also. And removing plastic from the oceans, it is naturally difficult despite the high profile of projects and activities that are going on to remove the plastics in the oceans. And the most practical also will be used to regular beach cleanup programs, and also there is an urgent need to explore the use of legally binding existing international agreements to address the marine pollution, and recycling and reuse of plastic products, and support of research and innovation to develop new products to replace single-use plastics are also necessary to prevent and reduce plastic pollution, and it is the need of our, and also to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs, and the point 14 of Sustainable Development Goal is to reduce the marine or to protect the life underwater, and 14.1 discusses on marine microplastic pollution. So, taking into account all these activities, we have to find suitable solutions to prevent marine plastic pollution. Thank you.